This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June Board of Selectmen meeting. I'm Mike Frieda, North Haven's first Selectman, joined by Mr. William Piper, our second Selectman, and Ms. Sally Boemi, our third Selectwoman. Thank you for joining us, and I'd like everyone to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, item number 2, any comments, public comments to tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move to item number 3, the approval of the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from May 1st, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes from May 1st.
I'll second Sally's approval.
So I'm going to have to abstain because I was out that day, so I apologize for that. So I'm going to abstain. But is there any discussion over the minutes? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And abstain. Item number 4, we're going to dispense with the overview for this evening, but we're going to move quickly into item number 5. And item number 5 is a discussion of a potential amendment of certain provisions of the agreement, including easements, recorded on volume 500, page 319 of the North Haven Land Records related to parking for a proposed development of 16 elderly units, housing units on 23 Maiden Lane, and to consider and vote on whether to refer the amendment of said agreement to Planning and Zoning Commission for pursuant to 8-23 Connecticut General Statutes.
8-24.
24, I'm sorry. So just a history on 23 Maiden Lane. I've worked with the owner for years to try to have that sold. We've worked hard to try to do something there, and tonight we think we have a solution. So I'm very happy to see Joe Porto, Attorney Joe Porto here. We worked very closely down through the years, and of course our town attorney, Jennifer Coppola, who are going to take us through this. So we turn it over to both of you.
Excuse me, Val, do you have an extra copy of the agenda?
Yeah.
Let me just steal one from you. I don't know what I did with my copy. I apologize. Thank you.
So I'm going to just give you a quick overview on this, and then I'm going to turn it over to Joe. Joe's been more involved at the Planning and Zoning Commission level because there were applications that had been submitted for the development. The easement was found, and those applications have been withdrawn for the time being while we work through what needs to happen with regard to amending the easement, because there are parking rights contained within the easement that, as indicated, it was recorded on the land records at volume 500, page 319 some years ago. The property is currently owned by a successor in interest, Maiden Lane Properties LLC. It's zoned CA20. It's 0.68 acres in size. The owner is seeking to redevelop the property. Currently, there's a 2-story office building on the property of approximately 6,800 square feet. It was built in 1985, and they're looking to redevelop the property into mixed use of retail on the first floor, and then age-restricted apartments, 16 total, on the second and the third floors. We want to make sure that there are parking spaces that are available for that use for future occupants of the development. and that the parking spaces are maintained, because currently there are not any maintenance provisions in the easement agreement, so we're going to take care of that as well. So the process that we're going to follow is we're here to just introduce to you what is intended tonight so that a referral could be made to planning and zoning. This is, in my opinion, I believe that Joe agrees, and I know that staff agrees, an easement that is necessary, an amendment that's necessary, rather, to the existing easement to go forward with this development project. And I think that that's the position that had been taken by planning and zoning as well. So we will, on the 824, get some input, because, you know, these types of easements are things that are not unusual in the planning and zoning realm. You know, when we go before planning and zoning, we'll get their input too about what the content of the amendment needs to be. And then, of course, we're going to be back to you, the Board of Selectmen, for your approval of the ultimate language in terms of the amendment, again, addressing both the use of the parking spaces as well as the maintenance of them. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe. You do have a copy of the site plan. That's going to need to be amended to provide some more detail, certainly with regard to what we're looking to do with the easement agreement.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Good evening. My name is Joe Porto. I do represent the owners of 23 Maiden Lane. So if you have in your packet this plan, do you have that? This will be the fastest way to go over what it is that we're looking to do. Okay, so you can see 23 Maiden Lane is called out as a rectangular shaped building, and then the parking that's immediately surrounding it is, let's see, a total of 33 spaces. That's shown in a light gray, okay? And then the slightly darker gray areas, where's not, north and west, or straight up and to the left, you'll note says Town of North Haven, okay? So here's how this is working. Presently, 33 spaces for Maiden Lane, and I believe 57 spaces in the property called out for the Town of North Haven. So, as Attorney Coppola indicated, we've advanced this application through the process of meeting with Mr. Frederickson, who's, I'm going to state, wonderful. Very sad that he's leaving. And the thought was that for the 16, if planning and zoning approves a project, okay, for the 16 elderly individuals who will be residing there, that we should have parking designated for those individuals. So on weekends, if they were to go out, for example, to get a cup of coffee, in return, their spot would not be taken potentially by somebody who's watching a child play soccer on Memorial Field. So the idea is simply to amend the easement, which presently reads, it's a cross easement, and it basically says the people that are going to visit 23 Maiden Lane during regular business hours, they can park on the areas shown as Town of North Haven. Conversely, people of Town of North Haven can park on the area designated for 23 Maiden Lane on non-business hours and Saturday and Sunday. So all we want to do is leave everything in place, but simply amend the easement so that 16 spaces are called out for the individuals who will be residing at 23 Maiden Lane. That is the only change we're looking for.
I think that's a perfect way to summarize it, actually. So, and this ties in, we'll turn it over to our board members for any comments, but this ties into, we want more elderly homes here. 16 more units is very important for the inventory here. We have elderly people that are on the waiting list to get into some of these facilities. So I think this is a perfect timing of this. So I appreciate you both coming here on this. Any questions? Bill, Sally?
Yeah, so I reviewed the easement from 96 at 500-319. And so the provisions for the parking, you know, the 7:30 to 5:30 and then the 5:30 to 11, that will all be changed. Those are the primary provisions that are being changed, and then there'll be designations. Now, the designations will all be within the light gray, I would assume, because it's closest to the building, for the elderly
Yes.
residents?
Yes, yes. We will call out 16 of the closest spaces to the building on the light gray area. That is correct.
So is each unit only being given one space?
That is what the regulations require.
Right, okay. And so are these going to be one bedroom?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Now, I thought I heard Attorney Capola mention something about maintenance changes as well. I noticed in the original agreement, the maintenance, this agreement had a lot of responsibilities for the original owner. What was it, Bronco?
Something like that, yeah.
Bronco, to do a lot of construction, paving, modifications of the intersection, curbing, all of that stuff. So all of the completion maintenance was to be on Bronco, and your client as the purchaser. I don't know if how many purchasers there've been since '96, but there's a provision in the agreement that it runs with the land, so it applies to all successors, correct?
Yeah.
So is that you mentioned a change in the maintenance. What will that change be?
Well, we've yet to discuss what we're gonna do with that, but that was something that we talked about.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not going to become the town's burden, if that's the concern.
Yeah, it's
That's
not,
the town's, that's my concern, and I
appreciate
would
it.
hope this is the town's concern.
No, I already
Yeah.
knew that in advance, but.
Well, he said the only change, I heard Attorney Capola say parking and maintenance, and Attorney Porto say parking was the only change. But there will be some changes for maintenance, and then there was also an insurance responsibility, liability responsibility of $1 million coverage, all of that.
we need to have a discussion about that. That's why I raised that.
So you're
As a possibility.
combining that with maintenance, the insurance responsibility as well?
I do generally, yes.
Okay.
Because, it all falls in together.
Right. Well, there's separate provisions here. And your memo said it's 2-story, but is it 3? Or are you counting the first floor, the ground floor?
Yeah, the ground floor is going to be retail.
Right. And then, but there is a second and third floor.
That is correct.
Okay, well, that sounds like 3 stories
yeah.
instead of 2.
It
But your
is.
memo said 2-story.
Because that's what's existing.
Okay, oh, you're going to add a story.
So I believe that there is a level, I don't know if it would be considered a basement, if you will, but there's a level below grade
Okay,
that's going to be built out for retail. So it's presently existing. The building is going to stay exactly as is.
okay, that's what I was just trying to get at. I wasn't sure.
But for assessment purposes, if you look at the field code, it's considered to be a 2-story building. So that's what it's described as.
Okay.
That's why my memo states what it does. Yeah.
Okay, so the ground floor retail is not considered a story, the 2 stories are above. Okay, I got it. All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Piper and see if he has,
So each unit will have its own assigned parking
Ideally, yeah, if approved.
that will actually be reserved for them, and if someone parks there, that they would be subject to being towed.
Yeah, presumably, yes. That is
But
correct.
it'll be clearly marked that it's resident-only parking, and
So we're gonna cover signage and all of
Yeah,
it.
signage will be,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
But go back to Sally's other question, if a resident does have a second car, then they just park
In the available spaces.
the available spacing.
and how about any designation for visitors of the residents? Because this is an elderly unit, a lot of people need help coming in when they're elderly. Will there be any designated spaces for, visitors? I mean, you have like 6 or 8 spaces designated for visitors, or it's just going to be the 16?
We could include as many spaces as you would like. What staff had asked is that we have 16 spaces for the residents.
Okay,
If you or the Planning and Zoning Commission feels that more spaces are necessary, that's fine.
Well, because this is their homes, and, you know, they get visitors, they get family coming, you know.
Sure. But there's also a lot of parking, but that's
There
fine.
is a lot of parking. I drove there right before I came here tonight, and as you come around going west, near the soccer fields, there's a lot of spaces.
Correct.
So, but there could be some major event, some, you know, that might impact, you know, again, these are their homes.
We are happy
Yeah.
to have more restricted parking.
Right.
So if that's what the commission would like, we will happily accept it.
Well, certainly, you know, we've referred matters to pursuant to 8-24, because that's what we're really doing. These decisions will be made at the planning and zoning level. But here tonight, it did say to discuss the amendments, so I was very interested in knowing the nature of those amendments too, and I have full confidence. So we're just really going to vote to send it.
Make the referral.
To make that
because-
report.
Because it has to come back to you.
Right.
And what I am envisioning, and I know this is not what is typical, but, you know, because I'm involved at this point, what I would generally do was in the referral back letter to the board, any recommendations of the commission will be noted. And like I said at the beginning, I think these are issues, you know, for example, whether or not to require additional spaces for visitors and such. Those are typically matters that are handled by planning and zoning.
Exactly,
application.
yes.
So we'll have that discussion with them. It'll be contained in the letter back, so that way you know, in terms of the content of the amendments, that it is meeting the desires of the commission.
Right, I think they have 35 days or something to get the report back.
And
Yeah.
our intention is to go to them at the July meeting, so.
Right, well, I certainly agree with Mr. Frieda's comments that we have to do everything we can to promote additional elderly housing. So I think it's a great plan that your client a great use that your client is presenting. You know, but I just wanted to, I was reading all of these timing restrictions on parking, and I had a feeling that it was going to be a parking issue, but I think it's a bit more than that also. So we'll wait for the report. Thank you.
Yeah, and just one final point, Joe mentioned Alan Frederickson. Well, you know, both Attorney Porto and Attorney Capola, they have met with Alan, so there was feedback from land use on the 16 spaces.
We did.
Right, so,
We did.
And what Joe is saying is that we're flexible here. So, so thank you for, you know, summarizing it that way too.
Thank
So,
you for the opportunity.
All right, so I think we're going to get to the point of
And
resolving
you also
this,
need
okay?
spaces for the retail shops.
So, yes, so the regulations require 34 spaces for retail, so we need a total of 50. So we're gonna have the easement's gonna be very handy for us. We're not looking to end the easement, we need the easement in order to comply with our parking.
Yeah, you answered the question of how many did you need, or how many is required for the retail space?
Yeah, so if you're interested, the rundown is, we need a total of 50 spaces, okay? There's 33 spaces immediately around 23 Maiden, and then there's 57 more spaces in the property owned by the town.
Again, those are the dark gray.
Darker, correct.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
That is correct.
This is, right when you turn from Peck Street, you know, left onto Maiden, it's a little strange that there's those parking spaces immediately adjacent to the street. You know, but it's a good use of the land, because right on the other side is the connector, you know, so they made good use of the available land, I thought.
So those parking calculations too, they do always appear in the site plan. That is a site plan requirement. And I know that the
It's a little hard to read.
the language is a bit small, but it is there. It's on the left-hand side. It's labeled.
Yeah, I'll have to get my magnifying glass for that.
So I just want to mention really quick before we sit down and act on the resolution. I have received some calls about Public Act 2549, the omnibus housing bill.
Yep.
So I will keep you up to speed on opportunities to learn more about the law. I don't, and circulate through staff a copy of the Public Act for you.
Because that had
If you've not taken a look at it.
Parking,
The
yeah.
governor has not yet signed it. It was anticipated that he would sign it today. It has not been signed at my last check. And my understanding is that he has received, as you've probably heard as well, correspondence from a number of associations as well as individuals asking that he do it.
Oh, yeah. Jennifer?
So.
Yep.
I
And
just
what
wanna make
impact do you
aware.
see on that public act, on the
So,
matter before us?
I have been reading through it. I think at the local level, we are going to need to amend zoning regulations as a first step, and it's gonna, there are some provisions that are taking effect in October. There are others that are taking effect next July. There's some as of right obligations. I think what I'm gonna end up doing is preparing a summary to be shared with the planning and zoning commissions that I represent, and I can certainly share that with the board as well, just to point out there are significant, very meaningful changes.
Yeah, I read about it, but what I read was so general, I don't think it covered everything. I think it's a lot more involved.
It's 91 pages
Yeah.
a month.
Yeah. Okay.
I think one issue that's significant is parking.
Yes.
And
So
in terms
that-
of,
That opt-out process that we went through, that's now being eliminated from the general
which
statutes.
may not necessarily be a
So-
good thing.
And the other significant, I think that there have been a lot of comments received, is there is an as-of-right residential development on commercial properties.
Right. There's a
So
lot of
that's sort of
changes
an
here.
interesting piece as well. Yeah, there's quite a bit. And then there are elements that address homelessness, there's a lot.
Okay, so I think we're at the point to cite the resolution here.
Yes, it's,
Who would like to go? Bill or Sally?
I'll go.
Okay.
So item 6, I'll make a resolution that the Board of Selectmen hereby refers the amendment of agreement, including easements, recorded in volume 500, page 319 of the North Haven Land Records relating to parking for the proposed development of 16 elderly housing units at 23 Maiden Lane to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a report pursuant to Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes.
All right, in the form of a motion?
I made
Okay.
that in the form of a motion.
I'll
Second.
second
All right.
Sally's motion.
And in discussion, I just want to reiterate one final point that I mentioned earlier. This is a very important project, helping the seniors, so I appreciate both you, Jen, and Joe being here, and I will call for the vote. All
Yes.
those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
I
you.
agree as well that it's important, but we also have to protect the town.
All right. We're good? Okay, thanks. Thank you. All right, now we're at the point of boards and commissions. So, Bill, would you like to start on number
A
7?
motion to accept the resignation of Luigi Lou Capola Sr., 27 Maple Avenue, as an alternate on the Zoning Board of Appeals, term to expire November 30th, 2027.
I'll second.
All right, with a motion and a second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Sumit Sharma, 88 Frost Drive, from the Zoning Board of Appeals, term to expire November 30th, 2027.
Is there a second?
I'll second his resignation.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll motion also for the resignation of Sumit Sharma, 88 Frost Drive, from the Community Services Commission, term to expire December 31st, 2025.
A second.
Okay, motion, second. Any other discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I will make a motion to accept the resignation of John Troiano, 160 Upper State Street, as an alternate on the Planning and Zoning Commission, term to expire November 30th, 2025.
Is there a second?
I will second John's resignation.
All right, in the discussion, I just want to let everyone know that John's work schedule has been so large, he's not able to continue, but he was a valuable member as an alternate. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Next, I'll motion for the appointment of Luigi Lou Cupola Sr., 27 Maple Avenue, to the Zoning Board of Appeals to fill the vacancy of Carolyn Yacarino, term to expire November 30th, 2025.
A second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I will make a motion for the appointment of Giancarlo Gallo, 166 Upper State Street, to the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate to fill the unexpired term of John Triano, term to expire November 30th, 2025.
I'll second that appointment.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Next, I'll motion for the appointment of Joel Rudikoff.
Rudikoff.
Sorry, Joel. Joel Rudikoff, 31 Lancelot Drive, to the Zoning Board of Appeals to fill the unexpired term of Sumit Sharma, term to expire November 30th, 2027.
Second?
All right, just in discussion, I just want to acknowledge Tim Gabriel, who sent me an email on Joel. I happen to know him very well. He's a very well-respected citizen here in North Haven. We've worked with him for years. So thank you for that recommendation. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I will move for the appointment of Christina Montanari, 99 Garfield Avenue, to the Library Board of Directors to fill the unexpired term of Laura DeVoe, term to expire December 31st, 2028.
I'll second her appointment.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Christina, thank you for stepping forward on this. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Okay.
We have to do meeting minutes.
Yes.
Meeting
Dates.
dates. Well, I'll motion for the approval of the 2026 Board of Selectmen meeting dates. Meetings will take place in the upstairs conference room, number 1 of the North Haven Memorial Town Hall at 6:30 p.m. Meetings will be on the first Thursday of the month unless otherwise stated with an asterisk. So I have to do the dates, right? Yeah. January 8th, 2026, February 5th, March 5th, April 9th, May 7th, June 4th, July 2nd, August 6th, September 3rd, October 1st, November 5th, and December 3rd, all of 2026. So I will make the motion for the approval of those dates.
I will second that approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Bill, next.
Okay, and then I'll motion, as we do pretty much every meeting, for the property tax refunds listed in our agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, item number 17, the next regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025, here at 6:30, here at the upstairs conference room at Town Hall. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the point of public comment. Mary White.
I didn't want to go first, but okay. Mary White, Summer Lane. So I just wanted to bring up a couple of topics that I think would be of interest to people. So the first one I wanted to talk about was the referendum and the popsicle party. So I have a few thoughts on this. So Tom and I went to vote on the referendum around 7:15 p.m. So at the time, there were lines at the check-in tables, and the line was wrapped around the rec center gym of people waiting to have their vote counted. And so I just thought it was awesome, the turnout. I thought it was great, and I thought it was awesome that, you know, parents took their children, and I just thought it was great, because we're always talking about, come out, get out and vote, please vote, 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 exercise your right to vote. So I just thought it was just so great. I didn't mind waiting at all. And I also thought that it was very clever of I think it was the PTA, the parents, to have this popsicle party on the town where they offered popsicles to the kids after the parents voted. So moving on to the next and related category is signage. So I wanted to clarify what is and what is not permitted on town property on an election or referendum voting day. So from what I understand, there's the 75-foot policy is in effect. So it was okay for there to be signage on the town green saying to vote, go vote for the referendum. And when you're done, come here and have your kids get a popsicle. So that was okay, correct? But it was just any sign that said to vote yes was not okay. And then if that's correct, how does that differ from people who are running for office having signs beyond 75 feet that say, vote for me in this election?
We need to have the registrars here, because they're
Oh.
they're the experts on this, okay? So that's what I would say. We need to have the registrars address that question, so.
Yeah, because like I said, I know, because I voted in many elections, when it's beyond 75 feet, there's signs, and I'm running for this board, vote for me, or I'm running for, this commission, vote for me. And it has their name. So they're suggesting to vote for them. So why was it wrong, if it was wrong, for the signs that were way more than 75 feet to have those signs say, go vote on the referendum and vote yes? So that I'm having a little difficulty, but
Yeah,
I guess I'll have to.
Look, I personally, when I found out about this, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the greatest things I've
I
seen.
did too.
So, but I don't know what the ruckus was, but the fact of the matter is, people came out, the PTA got involved.
Yep.
I thought that was tremendous, and little kids were out there way beyond the 75 feet.
Right.
Enjoying themselves.
Yes, and I loved it. I just thought it was great.
I'm not aware of anything that makes it illegal to have those signs.
Oh, okay, because I thought that there was discussion or talk about, well, the sign on the van, the popsicle van said, vote yes, so
Right.
why would
well,
that be a problem?
Well, again, as I said at the Board of Finance meeting, I thought it was a very smart marketing maneuver. And I thought that the registrars, the moderator, and the poll workers did a fantastic job coping with what was a chaotic scene. By 7:15, it had even calmed down a little bit. It was a little more chaotic an hour or two earlier. So there's nothing illegal about those signs that I'm aware of. But I just thought that a sign on a commercial vehicle just kind of was a negative impact on the sanctity of voting. That's all. That was my opinion.
Okay, but
But
there's nothing illegal
No,
about it,
no.
because whoever owns the van, the commercial van,
Right.
they have a right to say, put a sign on their van and say,
Right.
hey, go vote for the referendum and vote yes. I would like you to vote for yes. Can't force you to vote yes.
Absolutely
But they have
not.
a right to do that.
Nobody can force anybody to vote.
Right, right.
And nobody knows how anybody votes.
Absolutely.
So the signs were perfectly legal, but people could have different opinions. There were some other concerns about signs that were posted in the library prior to the referendum that advocated for voting yes. And those violated.
Those are problematic.
Those were violative of 9-369B, and the town attorney, who just left, had recommended that that they be removed.
Okay, with
So
that-
that's a different story.
Right.
There's one thing about holding signs, you know, again, they had a permit to be there, everything, you know, that, there's nothing wrong or illegal with those signs that were on the green. But there was a different issue when it came to the signs that were posted in the library on town property. The statute that I referenced says that you can't have signs on town property that advocate either for or against an issue.
Okay, yeah,
So
so-
those were, so I think people are confusing what was said about those signs that were posted on town property versus the signs on the green, which were perfectly fine.
Okay, all right, so that kind of goes right into my
Oh,
next
okay.
question. So my next question
Well,
was...
actually, I had a question since we're, did they run out of popsicles?
No, we didn't.
Oh, good. So that,
Okay.
actually, that was misinformation, too. 'cause
That was misinformation.
I would have said that was the worst thing that could happen, is that we ran out
We
of
did not. We were
popsicles.
there 10 minutes extra.
Excellent,
And had about 200 left over.
excellent. So we,
That's awesome.
you know, I was concerned that there was some misinformation about running out of popsicles.
Yeah, because some people said they ran out of popsicle. I heard,
Well, the
a
event was from 4 PM to 6 PM.
Yeah.
So they stayed
Oh.
till 6:15 as people were running to get popsicles. We said, please don't run, there's plenty of popsicles. And we actually paid for we paid for 300 total popsicles, and then I spoke to the owner, and she brought 200 extra, and he said we'd cover the cost if we sold, if we had extra people. And I knew that's very
I'll tell you what.
wonderful. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
if we could just, how about if we do this, ladies and
Oh,
gentlemen?
boy.
Let's let Mary finish, and then we'll have each of you come
Yeah,
up
you
if
guys
you'd like,
come
okay?
up.
We'll have Mary finish,
That's fine.
okay?
I'll go first.
Mary, go
Okay,
ahead, please.
And
yeah,
that was my
so-
fault for interrupting, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry,
So
Mary.
relative to signage in the high school and the library, I think I understand the differentiation between what is allowed and what is not allowed, because I think what is allowed is if there's a sign or signs posted in the high school that say, there's a referendum on this day, you know, at this location, please vote. So, and if a same sign, similar or signs, were to be put up in the library, are those okay? Does that violate a
that say
statute?
just where to vote?
It tells you when to vote, where to vote, and that it's a referendum. If they want to post signs in the high school and in the library, and they're just telling you that this referendum is coming up or this election is coming up, and they're not specifically saying how to vote, they're just informing the public, and I want to know if those signs are okay.
I think they're okay. We'll check it
Yeah.
with the registrars.
Yeah.
I see no problem with that at all.
Like I said, the 9-369B just prohibits signs that advocate either for or against. That, you know, so that's the determinative factor of being violative of that statute or not.
Okay.
So, you know, as long as they don't advocate for
Okay. And that could
or
hap-
against.
Okay, right. So and that can happen before the referendum or before the election, not necessarily just on the day of, that these signs could go up in advance of it.
Well, there's certain days in advance that they'd have to comply with, okay?
Okay, right. So there is a limit or a time frame where they could go up prior.
I think it would be analogous to putting something in front of town hall as an example, but we'll check with the registrars. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is what they do. They're experts, they work with the Secretary of State,
Right.
and they have a great deal of knowledge on this, so.
Okay, all right. And I think my last one on the sign category is, I didn't notice it, but we used to have a very big sign that used to be like on the corner of the green to vote in the referendum, and then it was the date. Was that sign put out and I just missed it?
No, we don't monitor that, Mayor. I mean, that's, the other people monitor that. We'll
Oh,
check it
okay.
out.
All
but,
right, so who would be the individual that?
I talked to the
would-
registrars,
Would know
yeah.
know where it is, and you think it's the registrars?
So you're
to call
talking
them?
about
Like,
this-
let's say if I said, you know, gee, I don't see the sign up, that big sign to remind people to go vote in the referendum. So you're saying I need to call
You're talking
the
about
registrar-
church, are you talking about Broadway and Church, is that, or
Yeah,
and
you
St.
remember that
John's?
big sign,
Right.
wooden sign or whatever?
Right.
Those signs are at the schools. We
Yeah.
never had one on the corner.
No.
So there was never something on the
No.
corner?
No,
No, there's,
Not even on that?
not on that
no,
corner.
we have we put a small sign they chained to the fence in
They
front
put
of
a
Town
sign
Hall.
In front of Town Hall, but
Okay.
there's never been one on the corner.
The
Oh,
real
okay.
big
I remember seeing
ones.
something years
You see
ago
them at the schools.
Right.
at the school.
This-
5 polling
Was a private sign
locations.
by P. Sal DeMarco.
Yeah, the big signs that say, again, it just says when to vote and where, the timing, 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I believe those were posted at all 5 polling places
Yes,
in
those go out
advance
usually 5 days before.
before
5
the
to 7
referendum.
days
They were
before.
there.
Okay, so they were there.
They were
Okay.
at Ridge, they were obviously at the rec center, and I'm assuming they were at Monowese. Yeah,
Now, that's a sign that if you didn't see that, then you'd call the registrars, okay?
Okay.
that's a big,
Okay.
But the
yeah.
corner there, we never had a sign.
You never had a sign there? Okay,
no.
okay,
Yeah,
all right.
those signs are allowed and even, I think, required in 9-369B,
Okay.
to just let people know time, date, and place, and hours of,
So even though the referendum voting location was at the rec center, you're saying those signs were up at the schools?
well, I only saw the one at Ridge, but I would assume they were at Monowese, Green Acres,
Yeah,
and Clintonville.
all right, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay,
They're good signs.
Yeah, oh yeah, they are. So I wanted to talk next about the scanner machines versus what I call the counter machines. So was it the Secretary of State or the state of Connecticut that required all the towns and cities to change their machines that would just count the ballots to these scanners? Does anybody know? Because it's
Yeah,
a
well,
whole
we had,
different
we
animal.
had, we had scanners. There was a conversion point where the
There's a conversion.
Secretary of State encouraged the registrars to do that.
So
But that-
encouraged,
And they
but
and they
is
did
it required?
Yeah. Look,
We don't know.
I mean, those are the questions that you really
Yeah,
really
yeah.
have to
Well,
ask.
I think the
So-
technology was upgraded in the new, machines. The other ones were getting old. It's
Yeah.
like the old, mechanical ones we had where you would
Well, you just,
vote on every person down on
Right.
mechanical.
yeah. Well,
So
see,
I
I
think
kind of
it's an
like doing
intention of-
things that are less computerized, you
Well,
know?
my recollection of
That's-
this is, it was a conversion, and the state offered money to the municipalities to
Mm.
implement the conversion. But again, Jim Carew and Jen Vandercoor would be the experts on this.
Okay, so I could definitely ask them. And so the reason why I am bringing this up, well, what I do know, because I was remembering from the Registrar of Voters budget workshop, that the state of Connecticut did implement certain requirements. So for example, relative to the early voting and the same-day registration, voting registration happening simultaneously, that they needed to be in a separate location. And we also needed a larger location. So I just remember you had to have a separate location from registering to vote during early voting and then actually voting during early voting. I also remembered hearing that the state required different ballots. So you'd have a ballot for early voting, and then a ballot for absentee voting, and then a ballot for same-day voting. So I had remembered that. And so my concerns about the scanners, unless you live under a rock, we've all heard about issues occurring during past elections in other states. We heard things such as scanners were accessed via outsiders, via the internet. We heard scanners were malfunctioning. The circle would just go round and round and round, and it just wouldn't count. We also heard things like that the scanners actually worked the night before during the practice runs, and then suddenly they're not working. We heard things like scanners were not recognizing certain Republican ballots, where then after the analysis was done post-election, they found that the barcode on them was different than what was programmed into the machine. So that's why every time a Republican had put their ballot in to be scanned, it was just rejected. We also heard about scanners rejecting ballots, let's see, due to someone with access, entering the measurements of the ballots, okay, that were actually different than the ballots themselves. So when the voter went to put in their ballot, it was rejected, and then they found out post-election and analysis that, hey, wait a minute, how'd this happen? So anyway, so I was just liking the other way, the counters, the machine counters, and I just didn't know how we could be assured that none of those issues could ever happen in North Haven. So I guess these are questions for the registrar. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, Stephanie, how are you? Good.
So, do you need my name and address?
Yes,
Stephanie
yeah.
Magnuson, 7 Manor Drive.
Thank you.
So, just quickly, I can actually, as I'm a state trained moderator, can actually answer a couple of your questions. So the new tabulators are very similar to the old ones in that they are not online. Everything goes to an SD card in the thing. They're not online during the election, just as the same as the old ones were. So the technology is just a little updated. The really cool thing about the new tabulators is with the old tabulators, every 500 to 700 ballots, we would actually have to open up the machine and take all the ballots out while people were voting, which was not great situation to have removing ballots while people were voting. So these new tabulators hold much more ballots than the old ones, which does a lot of great things for that part of it, and not having to remove ballots and lock them up and do all that and make sure that you have all your ballots and moving them more than you need to. So the new tabulators are great for that. You can certainly call Jim and those folks. They can answer these questions, but Jim and I had a conversation about them because I was like, oh, these are new, So those are just a couple of your questions. So those are not online, same as the old ones. Everything gets saved to like an SD card, and that part of the tabulator comes off, and then it gets locked in a bag. And that's how, and when we vote set up in the morning, you get that piece and you stick it in the tabulator and it activates. So nobody ever has their hands on any of those things. So they try to do it. And the fact that we don't have to touch those ballots as much is great, because touching people's ballots after they voted is not something that I enjoy doing. So just to answer a couple of those questions. Sorry. Just get back to her. So I also agree that to see all these people out voting was fantastic. I know there was a lot of people in town, and I really appreciate the PTA's involvement in getting people out to vote. It's really nice to see people bringing their kids and showing them what it's like to be involved in a process like this. That's exactly what you want for a town, right, to grow. So I had sent a letter after, because of some of the similar concerns that you had brought up, with people complaining about signage and people complaining about telling people to vote yes. And there was a lot of, hullabaloo, and it was a little disappointing because we probably had one of the biggest turnout ever for a referendum, and it felt like we were almost discouraging people from voting because of some of the comments that were made about signage and how we got those people there. It felt a little frustrating. So I'm writing to express growing concerns regarding the actions of Sally and Nancy, who in their respective positions of influence continue to actively disrupt progress, circulate misinformation, and conspire in ways that hinder the town's efforts to move forward. Rather than using their roles to represent the collective good and advance our community's interests, it has become increasingly evident that their behavior is self-serving. Their influence appears to be consistently leveraging not to foster growth, transparency, or unity, but instead to preserve personal agendas that run counter to what is best for the broader population. This pattern of conduct not only erodes public trust, but also stifles much-needed innovation and collaboration. Our town deserves leadership that prioritizes well-being and future of all residents, not just a select few. We are at a critical juncture where forward-thinking, integrity, and inclusivity must lead the way. I urge you guys to address this matter with the seriousness it warrants. Our community needs and expects accountability from those in power, no matter what the party is. And a firm stance against any attempts to derail that progress for this town. Thank you for your attention to this issue. I trust your continued commitment to the future of our town.
May I respond? Oh, she walked away. Yeah, again, I said, I spoke publicly prior to tonight only once at the Board of Finance meeting, and then I wrote a letter in response to someone else attacking me in a letter. And what I said at the Board of Finance meeting was I thought that it was a very smart marketing maneuver. I thanked all the people for showing up. I commended everyone for how they dealt with the chaotic scene.
So how do you explain the pictures that you were taking of everybody?
I only took
the
one.
the children that you were taking pictures of people.
Hold on. I never took.
You don't need to interrupt.
I only took one picture on the green, and that was of the truck, and I waited for no one to be there. I never took any pictures of any children. Never.
That's not what that's not.
What? Did I post? First of all, people have been saying I posted pictures of children. I got to tell you something about me. All my friends.
It's very disturbing.
All of my, can I respond? All of my friends were laughing. I don't even know how to post anything. I am so technologically challenged.
Well, that I can agree with.
Okay. I am so technologically challenged, I don't even know how to post anything. I don't go on social media at all. I've never been on social media. I never posted anything. I took one picture, and that was of the truck. I took absolutely no pictures of any children.
Sally,
I sent a picture that was posted on the, someone sent me, that was on the PTA website of a child holding a sign. I received that. I didn't take it. So.
Yeah, I'll let the rest of some other people talk that have better knowledge of the situation than I do.
Yeah, but you're entitled to your...
No, now it's my turn to talk.
Okay, sure.
I have listened to you in Board of Ed meetings, in Board of Finance meetings, in Board of Selectmen meetings, take up time with conspiracy theories and all kinds of nonsense that is like a dramatic waste of time. And it is so frustrating to watch and listen to how you treat people that we vote in to do their job, and then you talk to them like they don't know how to do their job.
What conspiracy theory? Give me, you said many conspiracy, give me two examples.
We can look back at any recording from
Give
any
me
of these.
two examples of a conspiracy. A conspiracy is when you're...
You always look at the Board of Ed budget, and you always look
That's
for
my
some
job.
kind of hidden gotcha that they're hiding money or using money in a bad way, and it's always directed at the Board of Education. Always.
When have I done that?
I will go home and get some video together, and I will send it to you, even though you're not technologically capable of figuring it out.
I could receive.
But I will be more than happy
I
to do
could
that
receive
for you.
stuff. I just don't know how
Thank
to
you.
send.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, is that Heather back there? Heather? Okay.
Thank you.
I am the longest serving Democrat on the Board of Selectmen, so some people...
No matter what party, sorry.
Excuse me. Some,
All right.
you can't make comment, I think you should rule people out of
Look,
order from talking.
Look, let me just, let's backtrack for a second. So whoever is at the podium, let that person speak at the podium, and you'll have another time tonight to speak, okay? So let's try not to interrupt the person who's at the podium. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me time to speak, all of you. My name's Heather Tolosano. I live at 68 Frost Drive in North Haven. I've been a resident and a homeowner in this town since 2003. I moved here for many reasons. One of the main reasons was to raise a family because of the renowned education system in this town, as well as other services that the town provides that are amenable to families. So I've been a resident for a very long time. I'm currently a registered Democrat, although I frequently vote for Mike Frieda, Dave Yacarino, Republican people. It really doesn't matter to me what party you are. I really care about what type of person you are, what your values are, and what you stand for. That's really what I'm about. I wrote an email to Mike Frieda, to the Board of Finance, and I CC'd the Democratic Town Council it was May 23rd, after I voted at the budget referendum, which I waited until the popsicle event so that I could bring my children, because I thought that it was a very positive way to promote voting and civic responsibility for my children. I have a 16-year-old who was there and a 6-year-old who was there. Other than that, I don't really speak well off the cuff, so I'm just going to read my email to get my points across. Thank you. I'm writing to express my outrage at public comments made this week by Board of Finance member Nancy Barrett. As a well-informed voter in North Haven, a mother to both school-age and adult children, and a full-time registered nurse, I find Nancy's recent remarks deeply offensive. Her assertion that my yes vote was the result of being strongly influenced by what she characterizes as false information I regard as transparency, is both condescending and dismissive of my intelligence and autonomy. Equally troubling is her claim that my vote was secured through coercion or by enticing children to the town green with popsicles. That notion is not only ludicrous, it is an insult to the integrity of all North Haven voters. There was no suggestion that one must vote yes to receive a popsicle. The event was a simple community-minded effort to encourage voter turnout. No one was asked how they voted. To characterize it as otherwise is a blatant misrepresentation, and it serves only to sow discord. Nancy's rhetoric, rather than fostering dialogue, seems intended to stir division within our own community. Furthermore, I take issue with her implication that my yes vote exempts me from facing any personal financial consequences. On the contrary, I fully expect to feel the financial impact. However, I firmly believe the services and investments reflected in the approved budget are worth supporting. Rising costs are an inevitable reality, and as a community, we must face them together. Not retreat into fear or finger pointing. That, I believe, is the spirit behind the affirmative vote. I am genuinely appalled by Nancy's conduct and the inflammatory nature of her comments. Such behavior does nothing to support the collaborative progress our community needs. Now, this was before your comments, so although I don't entirely believe what you're saying, because I haven't seen your phone, equally concerning is the matter of Sally Buemi photographing and filming children at the popsicle event. I was there when you were not photographing. My elementary age daughter was in attendance. As a parent, I am highly selective about what is shared of my child on social media, and I consider it's a violation of her privacy, but I don't know, to give you the benefit of the doubt, what Sally intends to do with the photos and videos. I urge those in positions of authority to ensure that these images are deleted and that appropriate action is taken to address this breach of trust. Thank you for your time and attention to these very serious concerns.
I took no videos that day. I took a picture of the back of a truck, and I haven't posted anything anywhere. Have you seen me post anything anywhere?
Well, I also said that I don't know what you're doing with the images or videos.
Nothing.
I don't know what is there and what was deleted or not shared.
I am doing,
I'm giving you the entire benefit of the
Thank you.
doubt.
I appreciate that. I'm doing nothing. People think that I am challenging the validity of the referendum, which is so untrue. I'm doing absolutely nothing. I am moving on.
we
The
have two
referendum passed, and that's it. That's
Just
the
a small point too, if you are responding to maybe something that one of the members of the Board of Selectmen has said, please come back to the podium, because it is, so people on CPT, on local TV, on the network there, that it's being filmed today, on public access TV can see you.
I'm so sorry. What I had responded, just for the record, was that I don't know, for the benefit of the doubt, and to Sally's credit, I don't know what she's doing. I don't even know what she has on her phone. I wasn't privileged to that information. I don't know what she's doing with it. I just wanted to say that if there was any malicious intent or if it was going to be publicized, I feel that's a violation, and you know, that's it.
I thank you for the benefit of the doubt. I have not publicized anything. I have a picture of a truck. That's it.
All right, so look, now we had some other hands up before you stepped to the podium, and I think I have two here, and I think it was Jenny Caldwell first, and then we'll come right back to you, okay? So.
Jenny Caldwell, 69 Kimberly Circle. I'd like to shift gears from this topic. I find this very disturbing that we're
Well, we can't.
using.
We
No,
can't shut
no,
that.
I'm just saying for myself. I'm not going to be addressing anything about the
okay.
election. I have other questions.
Okay.
Because the back and forth I find
Well, we're not going to
disturbing.
stifle public comment.
Yeah,
here
no, I know.
tonight, okay?
I'm not
So-
saying you should. But I was wanting to get some information on the affordable housing. I know we had the hearing or a meeting several years ago where there was the document created that was talking about what the affordable housing plan for North Haven was. And at that time, there was some discussion of a commission being, or a committee being formed to look at affordable housing in North Haven. I just kind of wanted to get a sense of what's happened with that plan, and has there been a committee formed and that kind of thing?
There was a committee formed, but none of the committee members had any insight, I shouldn't say insight, influence on creating affordable housing. So that's no longer in effect right now.
Okay.
What is in effect is House Bill 5002, which a lot of us municipalities are trying to get a handle on. So the affordable housing in North Haven is, we have North Haven's Housing Authority,
Yep.
which is Parkside and Temple Pines. Our commissioners oversee that. No one else oversees it. And we have a maintenance person who responds to both of those facilities. Then we have the others that are HUD funded.
Right.
We have no jurisdiction over that. Those are private companies that manage those facilities. Our office, Tammy in particular, and Valerie here, if there's a question on waiting lists, we will help the person, redirect the person to the person who's in charge of the management facility. So there's no other movement going on other than HB 5002, which will probably obligate North Haven over the next 2 years to try to build or entice developers to come in to build about 323 units in the next 2 years.
So, separate from the HUD housing and that kind of thing that was here before, I was thinking more about when we were opting out of stuff and then they had to come up with there was a plan that was put forward to look at trying to get that quota in terms of affordable housing numbers up.
We've been doing that. In fact, when I took office, we were at 4.29%. Now we're like maybe in the 5.6%. But the mathematical dilemma of that, to increase the numerator and the denominator, is almost impossible for any municipality to get to 10%. That's not at 10%.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. 225 units in the apartment complex on Route 5. Who do you think was involved with that? Do you know? Me.
Okay.
20% affordable for that. So Village on State Street, we had a little bit of affordable component there. So over the course of these last several years, we have gradually tried to inch the percentage up. Now, House Bill 5002 will probably shed a different light on it, because if we're able to find, through repurposing buildings like happened on Washington Avenue years ago, then you might see it inch up a little bit. You know, we thought about a transit-oriented district. Now, if that goes through, that train station, because there's still federal funds that aren't there yet, then perhaps there could be apartments there around the train station. But that's not really on the forefront right now.
Okay.
So, anyway, I hope that's the answer.
Okay. But I just want to go back to that plan for a minute because I'm a little confused about that. So there was sort of a plan laid out of things that were recommended that we voted on at that meeting. And that had multiple things on it. One was this idea of a commission, so it sounds like the commission or the committee,
There's no,
whatever.
the committee's no
Committee
longer-
is no longer.
Are you talking about the meeting that took place at the community room in the
Yes,
library?
yes.
That was,
Right,
we
that
formed a
was-
committee. We formed a committee, and they brought forward some of the things you saw at that January meeting at the library.
Okay,
So, but let me just repeat this, okay? The committee ends up being useless if the committee cannot get outside developers to build affordable housing. So that committee is no longer in effect right now.
well, I think some of the things they were talking about, and there was a somebody who was a consultant there from some, I can't remember where he
Yeah,
was from.
Ben Wright.
Where they were talking about things that, where some of our zoning things impact the ability to look at ways to increase affordable housing, which aren't always looking at apartments and things like that. That, you know, there's restrictions in our town allowing people to have more mixed use, not mixed use, but like, you know, allowing people to have more than non-family members living in parts of their houses, which allows housing to be more affordable in certain areas. So that was the kind of thing they talked about that night, so I didn't know if anything had happened with
Nothing's
that.
happened.
At that
Okay.
meeting, remember, we had to form an affordable housing committee, which we did, and we had a certain deadline that we had to abide by. I think we got.
And we submitted it,
We got
yeah.
one extension, most towns did, and we did submit, remember the big
Yeah, we
binder?
submitted. We
So we
submitted.
had that report, but you're talking about the opting out. That was the,
There was like.
there was a parking,
Yeah, there was the parking.
opting out, and then there was a
Accessory
building.
dwelling unit.
Because
Yes.
people
They opted out.
people confuse accessory dwellings with affordable housing all the time, but accessory is like a single-family house with like an in-law apartment.
Correct, yeah.
And so we opted out on a couple of things, if I recall, to maintain our local control of the issue.
Right.
Because if you didn't opt out, then it was like one of those negative things. If you didn't opt out, then you had to follow the
law,
proposed
yes. Yep.
regulations.
Yep.
So
Okay.
that's what we opted out of, the parking and the accessory from how,
But online, you'll see the affordable housing document that we submitted to the state.
Right, which was done before that meeting, right? So was there anything else done after, once that committee was formed, when they were finished with their work? Was there
I think
anything
that
related
was,
to
That was
that?
it.
that was our,
That's part of that?
that's
that-
what we
yeah.
approved that night.
Right, because they worked on that document. That's why we brought them in.
Okay.
They were the committee. They worked on the document to help us submit to the state to meet the deadlines.
Right. That's
Right.
exactly right.
That's the answer.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Yes, next, okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Strong, 70 Lexington Gardens. And in fact, I'm one of the organizers. I'm one of the PTA presidents of our elementary schools here in North Haven. And so I'm here tonight to respond to the recent accusations that the community event we held all together was both unethical and illegal. So at first, I'm going to talk about the event itself, and then hopefully on behalf of school-age parents in town. The event in question was organized by North Haven's elementary school PTAs, and it took place on the town green, well away from the polling place, legally and with approved application through the town and appropriate food vendor permit. In fact, you'll find my name on both the permit and through the Pop Centric, one of our local vendors here in North Haven. Even the CTPTA reviewed bylaws and confirmed that we were allowed to support a side of a local budget referendum. And in fact, part of our responsibility as a PTA is to support public education. And it was a simple gathering held from 4 to 6 p.m., offering free popsicles served by a local small business. There was no campaign literature that spoke of the way you should vote served on school property. No pressure, no requirement to show whether you voted, how you voted, or even, quite frankly, if you were a citizen of North Haven. There were no questions asked, you received a popsicle. Popsicles were handed out to anyone who walked by, adults, seniors, children, families, regardless of political stance, whether or not you voted. Intent was simple: create a welcoming moment for our families and help remind people that this was a day of civic importance. Let me be very clear. Both kids and parents made signs if they wanted to. In fact, my children, I have a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old, love arts and crafts. So having plain poster board and markers was there for fun, and a lot of kids just drew without talking about the vote as well. It's called engagement, not propaganda. In fact, if I were to reflect on ethical theory, which I do in my college classroom, I teach healthcare ethics, I would think about Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill and utilitarianism and how supporting the greater good is what we're all about. And that's where we are at the PTA, supporting all members of our public school education here in North Haven. So whether the overall benefits like public education being supported, quality of life, and improved services outweigh the costs, which would be higher taxes that we will all feel, and reallocation of funds. It is not unethical to care about your community. It is not unethical to encourage participation in democracy. In fact, that's exactly what we saw and what democracy should look like. The town saw one of its highest voter turnouts in years for a referendum, and it's not manipulation, it was civic responsibility. As parents, we knew what was at stake. We knew that a no vote would have direct consequences for our children's education, and we voted thoughtfully, respectfully, and within the full bounds of the law. To suggest that families, especially school-age parents, are not capable of making their own informed decision is both dismissive and insulting. We are not unaware, we are not pawns. We are parents and citizens who showed up because we understand that the town's budget means for our kids, for our schools, for our town, as us as citizens as well. This community event was not unethical, it was effective. And if civic engagement and family-friendly gatherings on public land make some people uncomfortable, I urge them to join us next time, because this is what an involved, loving community looks like. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
I love it.
You said at the very beginning that there were claims that your popsicle party was unethical and illegal. Who
Yes.
claimed that?
Well, see, at both meetings, at the Board of Finance meeting, which I watched from my home because I was urged to turn it on.
Yeah.
I had just come home from my son's baseball game. I was told that, you were speaking and then...
Okay, I never said it
Nancy
was
spoke as well.
unethical or illegal.
There were some claims that would say it was unethical, and maybe that came from Nancy. I don't exactly know. There was video.
I
but
never
there
used
was-
the words.
Well, and I didn't say it was you. It was
Okay.
at that meeting.
Well, you're at a Board of
Right.
Selectmen meeting, so
Right.
I'm a member of the Board of
Correct.
Selectmen. I never said it was unethical or illegal or manipulation at all. In fact, I commended that it was a smart
And I
marketing
appreciate it.
maneuver.
And that's what you keep saying. You keep
It-
saying
I
we
said
were
that.
manipulating, maneuvering people, and so that was just, it's the
Well,
way,
maneuver,
the words,
tactic.
yeah, the words we have, they have meaning, and you know that, right? We're intelligent people.
A smart,
Yeah.
marketable plan,
I
maneuver,
agree.
action, it was.
I agree.
It got out a lot of people, and I
Right.
have been advocating for
Yeah.
people to come and vote for years.
And that's
But I
great,
made
but
no
perception is
claim, I
reality.
made absolutely no claim that it was unethical or illegal or manipulative. I never
Appreciate
said
you
that.
saying I appreciate you saying that.
Well, I never said it, but you started your presentation with.
I didn't say you directly. I never
Okay.
mentioned anyone by name in
Okay.
what I said.
Well-
I said it was at the Board of Finance meeting, and I was directed to
Oh,
turn it
at-
on because there were claims
Okay,
of
at-
it being
at
unethical
the
and
be-
illegal. And I wanted to make sure that we had on fact in a public forum what we had and how we went about it, and we were very thoughtful and making sure we were crossing our T's and dotting our I's. Because
Right.
that is really important, because ultimately, this was a voter initiative for our families who often are so involved with so many things. They're, having a referendum at the rec center, they might see a sign, they might not, but we forget often. So it was a way to gather and build an event where people are more often to show up, because guess what? Our children don't forget.
Right.
And so they help us remember these types of events. So I
Right.
appreciate you saying
Well,
that
you
it's not
started
unethical.
by saying, you didn't mention anything about the Board of Finance. You started your comments by saying
There were
that there was
recent accusations.
unethical, some people
yeah.
made unethical and illegal claims.
Yeah, I said I'm here tonight
I-
to respond to recent accusations that a community event held, was somehow unethical and illegal. Yes, I
Right.
did say that.
Okay.
And that's
Well,
what I was saying, it was at that meeting.
Anything that I said about the popsicle party I never claimed anything unethical or illegal.
I appreciate
I
that.
did say that the signs that were posted on town property in the library advocating to vote yes were illegal, and in fact,
Sure.
the town attorney immediately upon learning that the existence of those signs, recommended that they be removed, and they were removed, not only from the library, but from a town website. So a lot of people are confusing that claim of illegal with the popsicle party.
Right, and
So-
but that's part of this, right? And why I wanted to be able to speak is
Yep.
because then we can clear this, right? We can clear that
Right,
because.
so I don't know of anyone who has made claims of unethical or illegal activities with the popsicle party.
Yeah.
But
I've heard some
there's,
rumblings, but
there
yeah.
have been there was discussion about, do you think it's proper to put a sign on town property, whether it's in the library or wherever, telling people how to vote?
Oh, that's a very loaded question, right? And so we have to respect the registrar
law,
and their
yeah,
role, right?
right.
I'm not speaking about
Yeah.
the signs that were posted in the
Well,
library, right? I'm
right.
speaking about the popsicle party. And I said I was here just to speak about
Right.
the event.
Well, but the
right?
only
PTA
reason
run
why
event.
and I appreciate, the only reason why I'm bringing up the library signs is a lot
Sure.
of people are confusing the
Right.
two.
But that's what I'm saying. This is
Yeah.
part of why I came, is to let's separate these two, right? Whether, we have to understand that perception is reality. So what was heard was everything was lumped together. So I was here to speak on the event, and we have cleared this, that you did not say it was illegal, you did not say it was unethical. So
No,
here we are,
I-
and this is a beautiful part, because I was
Yeah.
able to say the facts of how we went about establishing this event, right?
I did say that a sign on a commercial truck saying vote yes with pictures of popsicles, making it look like that was, what you had to do to get the popsicle. The exact words I used was, I thought that it had a negative impact on the sanctity of the vote. And I
Yes.
said, that is my opinion. Am I entitled to that opinion?
You can have any opinion you want, but you're
Okay.
saying in a public
That's
forum.
yes.
You're saying in a public forum, so it was, I felt like it was my responsibility as an organizer of event
Right.
to clarify that what this event.
But-
And as they were hired for this event, which was a voter initiative, and we are the PTA, they were hired under us, and it was not on the truck, it was on a chalkboard on there, so that it all talks
It
about.
was leaning on the, or
Correct,
it was
but
either
this is part
attached
of
or
it.
leaning on the
It was a
truck.
PTA
It
event,
was a
so it's going to
commercial-
say
yeah.
vote yes.
Yeah, it
right?
did
Because
say
that's
vote
what we
yes.
supported. So I
Yes.
absolutely 100% believe that that was fine in this current event.
Right.
Right, because we were running a voting initiative, and we were supporting, as the PTA, we were supporting a yes vote. But it didn't matter to get a popsicle where you landed in that voting spectrum.
Of course, no one can know how you vote.
Correct.
I just didn't.
Right,
I
so we're
didn't
allowed
think-
to put signs. What's a sign, holding a sign versus a sign?
No problem
Yeah.
with people holding
So-
the signs,
But I
although,
just don't, I guess I just don't understand the difference. It's still in the same event. In fact, it was farther away than those signs were
Yeah.
from the polling place.
Yeah,
So I just
the-
don't see the
the-
difference in that. Pop Centric is a local North Haven business.
Yeah, but
right?
I just
And
wanna
we
make
paid
it-
a lot of money to get them to come, because we wanted to support a local business versus going to a big box store and getting popsicles that way.
but you use the words unethical, illegal,
Correct, I did.
manipulation, and I never use those words. I
Again,
gave an
I didn't
opinion,
explicitly.
but I also talked about the illegal
Sure,
signs in the
sure.
library, and people
Right.
heard, oh, Sally, illegal
Yeah.
signs,
Yeah,
you know,
and I understand
and it
maybe
got-
some people earlier used your name, but I never used your name.
It
I said
got-
it was at the Board of Finance, and a lot of people spoke at the Board of Finance meeting.
Well,
So, again, it
I
might
don't
be
know
your
of anyone
perception.
who is claiming unethical or illegal activity on
Okay.
popsicles, so.
We've cleared this, right? You've stated it, I've
Well,
stated it.
a lot of awful rumors are out there about
Correct.
me.
Believe me, I know.
Yeah, and it's
for the event
unfair.
as well.
I've
It
been
is unfair.
serving, I've lived in this town since 1956, and I'm the longest-serving Democrat to ever serve on the Board of Selectmen. And I am really resentful of these rumors that are being spread that I'm calling the State Election Enforcement Commission. I'm trying to stop the effectiveness. I've never made any calls. I've never did anything. In fact, did you hear the second part of my comments at the Board of Finance meeting? You didn't? Okay, well, I'll tell you, I moved forward with what I thought were positive suggestions on moving forward for the financial future of our town. And I spent half of my time talking about new ideas. But all people hear or are thinking is that I thought your popsicle party was illegal. It was not.
Right.
Thank
But again,
you.
I didn't hear you speak, so I
Oh,
apologize.
well-
I was at my son's baseball game, but I did tune in right after you spoke, but.
Oh,
And
so
so
you
again,
didn't
this is
even-
why I never acknowledged you I didn't say anything that you did. This
Like-
was just generally at the Board of Finance meeting, so I wanted to speak about the event. So I
Thank you
appreciate it.
very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for making sure that all the children got popsicles.
Okay, yes, sir, in the back there.
Hi, Scott Yanko, 20 Van Rose Drive. I wasn't going to speak because I think so many people have so eloquently described what happened with the popsicles, but I just feel so frustrated because I did watch your speech and you didn't say unethical. You didn't
Which
say
one?
your
At
public
the-
comment at the Finance Committee
Oh,
meeting.
sure,
And I
okay.
just checked the NHTV captions of it.
Yeah.
And you did accuse the PTA of asking for yes votes for a popsicle. There was a long
I said
discussion.
there was a sign that said, there was one sign that they posted.
Yeah, I'd like to
Yep.
speak.
Okay.
Ms.
You-
Barrett,
When you,
Ms.
when you finish, I'll comment. Thank you.
Ms. Barrett cited a statute that we had violated for the same reason. So the idea that you're going to walk back and pretend that there wasn't at least an insinuation, if not a direct accusation of wrongdoing, it just doesn't pass the muster test. It's here. It's on the internet. Your speeches are recorded, as are yours. What you would have us believe is that the people of North Haven are so craven for popsicles that we would change our vote, and that they're thus so craven that we led to the largest turnout and budget referendum in over 20 years, as I understand it. That just doesn't pass muster. I don't think that you believe it, and I don't think that you believe it. I think you're being disingenuous. I think you're being insulting.
Okay.
I think that you should recant your defamatory statements, and I think you should resign. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
I talked about two signs at the Board of Finance meeting. The other sign was a photo that was sent to me that was posted on the PTA website. It was since removed. And the sign said it was a child holding, I didn't take it, it was sent to me, and it was posted on the PTA Facebook page, which I don't even know how to go on Facebook. So somebody posted it to me, and it said, vote yes, now get a free pop.
So can you clarify, you do think we were giving out popsicles for votes, or you don't think that? Because this is in keeping with your earlier statements at the Board of Finance suggesting that we were engaging in trading popsicles for votes. But a minute ago, you told us that's not what you're saying. So which one is it?
What I said was that I thought those two signs, the sign on the commercial vehicle that said vote yes, and the photo that was posted on the Facebook page that said vote yes now, get a free pop, had a negative impact on the sanctity of voting.
How so?
That's what I say. Because I just think that voting is one of those cherished rights, like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, other freedoms that are in the First Amendment to our Constitution. I just think that the right to vote is a cherished right that we are lucky to have in this country.
I completely agree. I'm just not clear how you feel that infringes on that.
Because I just saw it as commercializing that vote when I saw the sign
Was
on
there
the
money
truck.
exchanged for their votes?
Of course not.
So in what way, commercializing typically means the exchange of money?
Well, the truck was a commercial vehicle, and
It was.
And
When
it
you
was-
run for office, you disallow any campaign signs on any commercial property, anything that transacts business?
No, if the owner of the property lets you put the sign on,
And so
you
how is
can.
that different?
Again, I just thought that it was a bad optic for the town to have a commercial vehicle saying vote yes. That's all that I said, and that's my opinion. And it just had a negative impact on the sanctity of the vote.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's not an opinion, it's a defamatory statement of fact, which I think you know to be wrong. That's all.
No, it's my opinion.
Okay, we had another couple of, I know that Sue, I think you had a hand on Jim Buck next, okay? Susan?
Hi, Sue Benvenuti, Bassett Road, North Haven. First of all, those scanners for the voting, I thought were wonderful. It was great to see. Accepted. You know, at least you know your vote counted. I thought that was really cool. And Stephanie, I appreciate you telling us that the card is there. And, you know, it was just like, I thought that was really, really good. That's not why I came here. I came here because I was fuming as I watched on Zoom the Board of Finance meeting, because I was also watching my Letter Carriers Union meeting at the same time, and that's the only way I can watch both. I was furious at the belittling of adults, thinking that they were voting with one certain way to get their kid a popsicle. So, okay, I'd rather increase my taxes by $1,500 a year so I can get a free popsicle. I mean, that's really an insult. And the insult that, because I like Mike, is what I voted. It's like I didn't have any intelligence. And everyone over here who got up and spoke, kudos to you. The future kids are in great hands. They really are, because you thought it out, you did it, everything, and your respect for the kids and the town is amazing. I just want to leave it there.
Okay, Mr. Buck? Tim, I think, and Alex are next, but Jim, go ahead first.
Hello, Jim Buck, Ansonia Drive. So I think that word respect is actually really important, and I'm glad to hear it. What we're seeing, I think, is a process where people are unhappy with comments or characterizations and things like that. And elected officials are certainly accountable. They're accountable to the people of the town. But with that, I think that accountability comes with the requirement of respect, and respect for these positions and respect for those that we've elected. Whether you voted or not, whether you voted for the budget or not, respect the process. Respect when you win, respect when you lose. I think people should be held accountable for their words and their statements, and there's methods to do that. This town has a lot of important business, and this Board of Selectmen meeting is to conduct that business and to discuss the business. The budget is done with. The budget has been voted on. The budget is in effect. At this point moving forward, I think taking target practice at certain elected officials is the wrong look. We can do better than that. Do better. I think that those that have spoken in drastic ways, they'll be held accountable at Election Day with the support of others. But to come here and direct fire shot after shot to our elected officials, I was home watching this, and I said, I'm going to come in because I don't think that that's what we stand for, and I don't think that that's what we're about. So I've heard members of our Board of Selectmen talk for years about increasing turnout. This was, by many estimations, a successful way to do that. Good job. Characterizations, handle it with a letter to the editor. That's the appropriate method. Coming here, I think we've gone too far with this. And that's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it.
Thank you.
Yes, Tim.
Hi, Tim Gabriel, 18 Renee Lane. For those that don't know me, I am the chair of the North Haven Democratic Town Committee. And I wanted to come here tonight because we have received an irregular amount of outreach to our Democrat inbox about Democratic Board of Finance member Nancy Barrett over the past couple of weeks about statements that she made at the May Board of Finance meeting. And I'm sorry to reiterate some of this stuff, but I do think it is kind of important just because people have been reaching out to us and they feel that these comments are not representative of the Democrats in town. And after reviewing the materials, there are a couple of themes that emerged that were common amongst these who reached out. Not everybody said the same exact things, but there was a lot of overlap between some of the emails. There were folks that said that Mrs. Barrett's remarks belittled and insulted the average voter. You heard some people mention that here tonight, that they were presenting them as largely ignorant novice voters, which is a quote from her speech during the Board of Finance meeting, that they were loyalists to Mike Frieda, or that they were rich cavalier idealists who cared more about principles than keeping costs low. There were also remarks that she made that had implied that the voters were coerced by various methods that include the signs that were inside of public buildings, which my understanding were intended to be transparent about the potential departmental cuts. Maybe they went about it in the wrong way. and a PTA party where voters were encouraged to come and pick up a popsicle afterwards. The writers thought that these remarks were disparaging to the PTA, to residents, and to public officials. As we said before, it is important that we respect our public officials, and this was disrespecting them as well, too. The remarks that were made that were not backed up by evidence and appear to be outright lies, specifically that the school had displayed signs and distributed materials encouraging voters to vote yes. This does not seem to be true from any evidence that I can gather. This also appears to be in a lineage of attacks, many people mention this, that Ms. Barrett has repeatedly leveled to discredit or disparage the Board of Education specifically over the years. Remarks were also made that seemed to be harmful to civic engagement. Referendum turnout, as we all know, tends to be pretty low, and Ms. Barrett's comments about implying that voters who disagreed with her weren't engaged enough seemed to imply that they should have stayed home. One commenter said that it harkens back to the days of literacy tests and poll taxes. There were comments that were people also remarked on where she said that she did not believe in the contractual obligations to read the names of the non-tenured teachers, as she could have found out by just asking. This is part of the teachers' contracts. And it was not scare tactics. It was actually something that they were legally required to do. There was also one observation that was made that Ms. Barrett was inside the rec center several times talking to voters within 75 feet of the polling place. Although that writer said that they admitted they did not know if they were talking about voting matters but it was a matter of concern just because of how difficult it was to trust Ms. Barrett after misrepresenting so many different things. So all of these things are very gravely concerning to myself. They're very gravely concerning to members of the executive committee when we met last night and discussed this, and other DTC members and stakeholders that I've talked to. And since this is a bit unprecedented situation, I'm looking into what our options are for a board member and how we can hold somebody like that accountable if they do not represent us. But if there are additional methods that we can make sure that these meetings do not go off the rails with discussions like this, it's very hard to fact check things in the moment. So sometimes things persist. I talked to Sally about some comments that she talked about that she said were not true about her, and I've agreed that we're going to check the record when that happens. Tonight you mentioned that you had a picture as well, and you sent me that picture.
Of a truck.
It was not a screenshot, though.
You asked me to send you it. The two pictures that I talked about.
Yes, you did. And you mentioned tonight that it was a screenshot from a Facebook page. I do not see a screenshot. It was just a simple picture. So I don't know that I can prove that it was on the Facebook page, especially since I check the Facebook page every week for our calendar updates of every single PTA. There are 6 different Facebook pages, one for each PTA.
I didn't take that picture. It was sent to me.
Relatively off of there. So,
okay.
I mean, maybe before you make those statements out in public, you should try to verify it yourself, too. Because of the insinuation and because, as has been said here before, perception becomes reality as well.
I didn't take the picture. It was sent to me. I asked the person who sent it to me where it came from, and it was from they said from the PTA Facebook page.
Right. And I think this is getting a little bit too in the weeds here.
Yeah, definitely. Like Mr. Buck said, definitely.
But I also think that this is sort of a pattern that we need to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable.
Yep.
And that we're understanding why so many people may come with if it may be a wrongful perception, but why so many people have gotten that perception after listening to you talk as well.
Right.
And to you as well, Ms. Barrett.
Well, I didn't take any videos of children or pictures of children. I took a picture of a truck.
Okay. I'm not going to comment on any of that.
That's fine, but there was a sign. I didn't bring this sign up at all yet publicly, but there was a sign on Ridge Road school property right by Ridge Road. I think it was right next to the big sign that the registrars posted on Ridge Road that said, that we were talking about before, that said, the date of the referendum and the time. There was one of those small signs and it said, vote yes today, budget. So that might have been the sign that.
So this was a sign that was on school property?
Yeah.
And you haven't brought this up before?
No.
Okay, so you're
No,
just
but I
bringing this up
think
now.
that-
We don't have any
But
way to
that-
verify or to prove
that- I
it.
think that's the sign that Mrs. Barrett was talking about, that,
Yeah, when was this picture
wa-
taken?
On referendum day.
This was taken on
yeah,
referendum
yeah,
day?
because it says vote today. She could show it to you right now.
And this was
but-
taken on referendum day?
Yeah, because it says vote today, vote yes. Here, look at
See
it.
the date, May 20th? Here it is. It says, vote yes. Referendum today.
Okay.
6 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's a clear violation of the law.
It was, so that's what, I think that's
So
what she
who put
was,
the sign there?
I don't know.
Yeah?
I don't
Okay,
know.
maybe we'll find out one day.
yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe we will. All right, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
My name is Alex Johnson. I live at 50 Fallon Drive. I would like to apologize first for speaking out of order and allowing my passion to get the better of me. But I would like to put on the record that after sitting for a good couple of hours outside of the green, it was a hot day, not outside of the green, apologies, for outside of the rec center, just thanking people for coming out to vote, that I walked up to get a popsicle. Up at the green. And I saw Sally. And I saw her not talking to her constituents, not waiting in line for a popsicle, but walking around with a phone. And I was concerned because she was very separate away from other people. And I was suspicious because I do photography. I do it as a personal, private thing of my own. And I've taken several classes, and I've taken ethics, and I even, when I was abroad, would take cards that would ask people if I can take their photos or not, and so on, of any place, and in multiple languages. And when I was suspicious, I walked behind 3rd Selectman Buhemi several times because I wanted to see what was going on. And I wanted to be put on the record that I saw your phone on record with the red camera changing where it turns numbers, and I saw a child run in front of it. The very next morning, I think Valerie can verify, that I called her office, and I was concerned because there are trans children there. There could be children of people of domestic violence, and whether you posted it on social media or not, I'm before even social media. And I remember people taking photos just on their phone, and they can text them to, like, Ms. Barrett sent a photo to you, and that can be just as bad as social media. That can almost be worse, because then those people who do know how to use social media can send it to, and put it there, and we don't know where it went. So if you want to prove me wrong, I make a motion that you turn over your phone to Mr. Frieda and prove me wrong, and also open your deleted photos. If I am wrong, and I will admit that I'm wrong, then turn over your phone. Otherwise, and if you still refuse to do that, then I would like to make a motion that you are impeached. That we make a motion for an investigation and an impeachment, because this is amoral, it is wrong, and it is dangerous.
Lots of people were taking photos on the green, all over the place. Everybody had phones taking pictures of people. Is there anything,
Whether it is illegal, I did not say it was illegal.
Okay.
I am saying it is unethical and immoral
unethical
and
to
dangerous.
take pictures? I saw so many people taking pictures on the
Of their
green.
own children.
Just of the entire event.
Their children were in it, who also knew the parents there. You did not have children there. You were not communicating and talking to other people. You were off to the side by that truck.
That's right.
And I saw a child run in front of your phone while it was on record.
If it was on record, I'm so bad at using my phone. I was waiting for people to be away from the truck so I could take a picture of it. That's all.
So you're admitting there is a possibility that there is a child on your phone right now
I
that you do
highly
not have
doubt
permission
it.
from a parent?
I highly doubt
Then
it.
turn over your phone to Mr. Frieda.
I don't have my phone with me. I hardly ever carry it.
Then will you turn over your phone within this week to Mr. Frieda?
No, I'm not going to turn over my phone. What is illegal about taking pictures?
It's not a matter whether it's illegal. That parents, we don't know whose child that
okay.
was, and that child.
I didn't, listen, I don't post anything anywhere.
I didn't say post. I said you can text it to other people.
I didn't do that either. This is
Well,
ridiculous.
how do we know that if you have not turned over your phone?
This is ridiculous.
Let's move.
Then can we, Mr. Frieda, can we make an investigation? Let's put this to bed and let's put a motion for an investigation.
We don't have the authority to do that.
This is
Yeah, I think that's outside the
getting
scope of
really
what we can do
ridiculous.
as a Board of Selectmen.
But this is how dangerous and how unnerving and scared you have made the people in this community and their parents feel. Can we at least have an apology that you possibly had took a photo of someone's parent or child or anyone without their permission? At least an apology.
I was waiting for people to be away from the truck so I could take it without anyone there. If I took any picture with the backs of anybody where they were blocking the sign, I could have deleted those, but they weren't.
Then if you want to put this to bed, then why are you so nervous to show us that you have possibly
I am
deleted
not
those?
nervous. I think it's insulting to ask.
I'm not afraid to turn over my phone.
Let me see.
I'm not afraid. I'll show my photos right now.
This is, I don't want to see your phone. I'm not interested.
Sue, you're
This is absurd. This is absurd, ladies and gentlemen. This is an attack.
We have another. All right, we have
This
another.
is really absurd now. We are
Susan, come
in uncharted, absurd areas.
Because we
I have
never
been serving.
felt so unsafe by our third selectman.
Okay,
You
Susan.
feel
Hi, Sue
unsafe by
Benvenuti,
me. I have
Bassett
been
Road,
working. Go
North
ahead.
Haven.
Let's go.
I have a question, and I don't know how to address it to you, but, okay, if there's a sign that goes to each one of the schools about the referendum, to vote,
Right, right.
can we get one at the senior center? I'm just asking, because I don't go to schools, so I'm old, I go to the senior center, a lot of people, if we don't talk about it,
I think we can, yes.
I'm just asking, I didn't know, because I thought Sally had said it was on a certain,
No, I think we can, we can.
okay,
They can
thank
go
you.
anywhere.
Okay,
They
thank
can-
you, that's all I'm asking, is that we know.
Is there anyone who hasn't spoken for the first time before we go secondly? Anybody else? All right, yes, sir. Okay, then Mary, you're next, okay?
Peter Criscola, 54 Fieldstone Court. And I apologize, I don't have any notes or any paperwork. I speak from the cuff. I may not be as eloquent as everybody else, okay? First and foremost, I want to just say, there was a sitcom, put some levity in this. Welcome back, Carter. Welcome back, Mike. At 110%. God bless you.
Thank you. Okay.
I speak with a few different hats. Former Democratic town chair, been there, done that, successfully. Former fire commissioner, current taxpayer, current grandfather. I'm not going to say that you took the photos, because I don't know it for fact, and I would never label you that way. But if you did, shame on you. And if that's a watchdog tactic, then the watchdog should be leashed and collared, if that's true. If it's true, I'm not saying it is. And I'm not going to ask for your phone. I don't care. You live with that. As far as the popsicle vote, we won by a popsicle vote. It's absurd. We have 300 popsicles that we gave out. 40 or 50 were given out to local poll workers. So let's say 250. Take the 250 off to 1650. We beat you 14-9. What kind of a beating do you want to take? You took a 1.5 to 1 a beating. It's ridiculous. We're talking about popsicles. Do you understand that? I'm a taxpayer. My taxes went up. And first and foremost, I want to thank everyone that voted yes on affiliates, Democrats, and Republicans. And I want to thank especially the Democratic Town Committee, who came out and supported a Republican budget 100%, which I am part of that party. So, I've been involved in politics, I want to date myself, over 60 years. Most of my time in New Haven and in Hartford, Bridgeport, and some in Waterbury. Do you realize how absurd this sounds about popsicles? About popsicles? We're threatening people with popsicles? My other hat that I wear is a marshal's hat. And I have a tool belt with a sidearm. I may turn in my sidearm for a double-barrel popsicle. because maybe I could threaten people with that. That's how absurd this sounds. I mean, we are adults. We sound like 4-year-old children. You talk about signage on a truck that is degrading and embarrassing. I hope at Christmas time, when a truck goes by with Santa on it or a Christmas tree, you're not embarrassed or insulted, because that's part of life. You're worried about a truck with a sign, vote yes for a popsicle. Is that nuts? You talked about literature that was put in a library. Maybe it was. I'm sure it was, because they took it down. It was in bad taste, maybe illegal also. But I don't think it was campaign signage. I think what it was is an informational piece of paper that says, if you vote yes, these are the things you're going to get. If you vote no, these are things you're going to lose. Was it wrong? Yes, it was wrong. It shouldn't be there. You're 100% right. I give the devil his due. But I don't think that a popsicle swayed people from voting, because you don't know how someone votes when they go into that little box or cubicle. And how do I know that? Very well. And I'm going to point the finger. I am going to point the finger, because I'm a guy that shoots from the hip. And I tell the truth. That's why I have no notes. I don't need notes to tell the truth. It's already inside. You gave me your word you were going to vote yes for fire commissioner a few years ago. You went in a closed-door room and voted no. So as far as giving people their word and selling out for a popsicle or selling out for a diamond or a block of gold, your word is your word, not about a popsicle. So I hope everybody, we stop about the popsicles and we move on to bigger and better things. Most importantly, the Board of Ed. And Jim Buck, the fire chief, made a great thing. Stop picking, end the story, change the subject. Let's go somewhere. You're a very smart man. Let's change the subject. Let's move on to something else more important. Let's move on with maybe the fire department. Get us more men. Get us more personnel. Get us more apparatus. That's what I want to see. Thank you very much for your time.
Can I respond to that? I'm going to respond.
Absolutely.
I didn't vote against your candidacy in a closed room. I voted against it at the DTC nominating convention.
No, you didn't.
Very open.
You voted at a closed room when we had the nomination meeting that night. You said no. And you said before the meeting you were voting yes. Let me finish.
No, I did not.
Let me finish.
No, I never said that.
Listen to me. In Italian, listen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into a debate. I'm not going to argue with you.
Well,
let your conscience be your guide. Your words to me were quote. I'm going to quote you your words.
Yeah.
You may be an
when did I say that?
You may be an attorney.
Yeah,
you may be an attorney.
When did I
but
say?
trust me.
When did I ever say that I was going to vote for you on the
When did you say it?
Yeah.
Before the nominating meeting, you said to me, I don't like you for what you stand for, because as a Democratic, former town chairman, I cross-endorsed Mike Frieda. And I'm proud to cross-endorse him again, right today, to cross-endorse him for first selectman. Because I vote the way I feel is right. Let me finish. I didn't interrupt you. Let me finish. You said to me, I don't like your principles because, A, I was with the union, I was with a couple of Republicans. Lenny Fasano was a friend. Dave Iaccarino was a friend. You didn't like that I voted yes for the Crumb Rubber Fields with Jeff D'Onofrio. But you said to me, quote, I'm going to give you your endorsement only because you're the incumbent. That's what you said to me. Let me finish, word for word. And my answer to you was, you lied. And that's the bottom line.
In 2019, you're talking about, right?
If that was the year, I believe it was, 2019.
That was the year that you
when
were...
I sat down for a 15-minute interview with your board, and it lasted an hour and 31 minutes, and 10 minutes was about the fire commission, and the balance was about why I was involved with the unions and why I supported a Republican decision to make Crumb Rubber Fields. Let's end it, because you're not going to admit it. Yep. You're not going to admit it, so let's just end it.
You're accusing me of lying. You're lying right now.
Okay.
You are. You are in a dream.
You've already been brought down 100 times already. End it now, please. Thank you very much.
I am trying to move on. The budget passed. The mill rate is set. I already have moved on from it.
All right, Mary.
So
Mary.
this is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Okay, well, another riveting meeting here. Ratings, I'm sure, are up. So, Mary White, Summer Lane, and I would like to talk just briefly about that 25-49 Public Housing Act. So earlier, the town attorney, Jennifer Coppola, mentioned that it was 91 pages, and she's talked about provisions going to effect in October, provisions that would be effective next July, and that she would create a summary of this 25-49 Public Housing Act, and that she would provide the summary to the board and also to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So here's my question. I'm very interested in getting a copy of that summary. So how would I go about getting a copy of that summary when you all have it and Planning and Zoning has it? And
Well, as soon as we have it, we'll give it to you.
okay, so should I ask Valerie to call me, or should I call you weekly, or how do
I don't know
I?
when
Because
she
she's
has-
very busy. Everybody's busy.
I don't know when we'll get it, but
Yeah, I don't know
We don't
either.
know when we're gonna get it, but
Right,
if
right.
you'd like, I'll make a note that when we
Yeah.
do get it,
Yes.
that I will share it with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
okay.
That's the easiest thing.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, any other comments or questions? All right, Mrs. Barrett?
Good evening, Nancy Barrett, 1 Crestview Drive, and I will be addressing the emails that were sent to the Board of Selectmen and to the Board of Finance that were sent about my comments at the May Board of Finance meeting. I will be addressing those as they should be addressed at the August Board of Finance meeting. I'm happy to do so. So I'd like to bring up a totally different subject, which is in the past, in our local papers, since we had more of them in the past, we used to have a police blotter. And we no longer have access to that kind of either weekly or bi-weekly information. So I'd like to suggest for this board's consideration that that information be made available to the public on our town's website. We really can't be reliant upon either the advisor or the one remaining additional paper, which does not come out weekly. But I think that our men and women in blue here in town do a fantastic job. We should all be very proud of them, and I think that that is actually evidence of the hard work that they do day in and day out. And I think that the people of this town actually need to have some sense for the various reports that are made on a regular basis.
When you say reports, what are you talking? What
Meaning, again, just they used to be just like one sentence on such and such a date. There was a response to a certain call for.
They're not going to do that, Nancy. They're not going to do that. I mean, what you?
But we had that in the paper.
Yeah,
We
the
used to have
Courier
that.
and the
So-
Citizen
We
did
used to
that.
have that.
They called
Well,
it the
that-
police.
And
blotter.
many
Also very
towns do.
controversial, I
Right.
might add. We used to get a lot of complaints from people who did not appreciate that being printed in the paper.
Yeah, there was a lot of backlash on
So
that.
there are lots of towns that do actually make this available.
Because everybody's innocent until proven guilty.
Of course.
So just because something happens, no one knows the circumstances, and now you're in the paper.
Well,
And if
again,
it
you go
happens
to
a
the
family
police
member, you might
department
think
Facebook
differently.
page and you see pictures of people before
So
they're
what,
convicted.
what they
so.
do, are you on social media? Facebook?
I have been told that there have been lots of pictures posted on.
They're not only pictures. They are descriptions of events
Yes,
and
yes,
arrests.
I understand. Again,
there's-
but this is before someone is
I'm
actually
going to tell you right
convicted.
now, we're not doing a blotter. The police department is not going to do a blotter. Because the chief, no one's going to go along with that. But they will continue to promote and present on thousands and thousands of Facebook profiles. There must be over 10,000 people on that, and it gets shared all across social media. In an age of social media, the police department is outstandingly transparent in terms of what they're doing.
Again, I am more advocating for people who are not on social media, who would also be interested in accessing.
Well, you heard Valerie just say, there was very controversial. A lot of people don't want the blotter. So they were complaining again about the blotter.
So it was removed from the newspapers because it was
I have no
complained?
idea
find
why
that.
it was removed from the newspapers. I'm just telling you that in my term here in this office, I received many complaints from people who did not appreciate the blotter.
Okay.
because it can be very controversial. You don't know the circumstances.
No, of course not.
As to why there were parents who would call because family members' names were in there. No one knew the circumstances of what the robbery was or the drug bust or whatever it was, or a kid found with drugs. It doesn't necessarily serve a very valuable purpose, in my opinion.
In fact, if the police department were to do it, and I would not even recommend they do it, you're going to put the town in a liable situation because there's no conclusion to some of the blotter points. So what the police department does, they present the conclusions with a description of why the arrest took place.
Right, it's usually the more heinous crimes. The police blotter used to be every little thing.
Right.
Threatening, something simple that no one knew the circumstances of. There was an example of someone whose high school, two girls got into a little discussion. One girl accused the other girl of threatening her. The girl was arrested for threatening when it was just I don't appreciate what you're saying to me. I'm gonna punch you or something.
Understood.
And now the girl's name is in the newspaper that she was arrested for threatening.
Okay.
And the parent is like, this is like high school. I'm just telling you, that was one instance that I heard of.
But it obviously escalated to a point where someone was arrested.
Yeah, but my point is, nobody really knows the circumstances.
No, of course not.
That case has to go to court.
Right. So we're not putting something on a police
blotter. The case goes
blotter.
to court, the child, or the juvenile goes to court, or I think she was over 18 at the time. And now the court decides whether she was guilty of threatening or not. But just because she was charged with that doesn't mean that she was guilty of it. And now that person's name is in the newspaper, and people did not appreciate it. So I used to hear that oftentimes.
Okay. All right.
There's two sides to a story. Is all I'm
I
trying to
completely
say.
agree. I completely agree with you. There's always two sides to the story, but I have had lots of people say to me, well, we're down a newspaper and we don't have access to this information. We're not on Facebook. We're not on social media.
I'll tell you what,
How do
you
we
have the people call me.
Sure.
Have them call my office and
I
I'll
will
talk
do-
to them. Then
I
we're
will
going to
do that.
explain everything we just tried to explain.
Sure.
here. I want to summarize this. To put an item on a police blotter that hasn't been totally adjudicated, it's a stain on potentially someone's record that's going to open the town up for a liable lawsuit. So we're not doing it.
Okay.
I hope everyone agrees here.
Well, again, I come from a town in Massachusetts in which it is a town meeting form of government, and they do actually have a police blotter. So
Well,
I do know that it
this
is
is
done.
North Haven, Connecticut. It's not Massachusetts.
I understand. So it is done. You're giving the impression that it's not done. It is done. It's a decision.
No, I'm telling you why it's not done.
Okay.
I'm telling you why it's not going to get done.
I understand.
So
Well,
that's
just
the
because
answer.
that other town is stupid and does it, doesn't mean we have to do stupid.
Well, again, it's not necessarily stupid, but it's transparent. So thank you.
Mike, I just answer that for a second.
Okay.
We did have the blotter in either the Courier or the Citizen for years.
But that's not us.
I know.
That's what you don't understand. That's not us.
Right.
Okay.
Peter Criscola, 54 Fieldstone Court. Just as a small joke to that, growing up in New Haven, St. Michael's, we used to meet at the last month of the school year on Columbus Green, and we used to talk, and the priest would come out. And to kind of form that up quickly, the priest would tell us, when you tell a lie about somebody, or you tell a story that's not really true, it's like cutting open a pillow and letting all the feathers go all over the green. When you find out that the story was false, you try to gather all the feathers. You can't gather them anymore. Somebody still has a feather, and that person has a stain that they maybe shouldn't have. But that's just, it's no disrespect or anything against you. That was just a little thing that we learned from the priest at St. Michael's. And I thought that was something that came out nice.
Can I say one more thing?
Okay, yes, go
I
right
promise
ahead.
it's not about
Go
popsicles. Stephanie Magnuson, 7 Manor Drive. So this goes back to the first thing that you had with elderly housing. And I just wanted to tell you that I wholly appreciate anything you're doing to try to achieve that. Recently have been trying to help my mother find senior housing, and it's extremely difficult. There's a lot of dead ends, there's a lot of non-phone call backs, there's a lot of non-return emails, there's a lot of people that have different information, there's a lot of people, I mean, I can't even tell you how many hours I've spent on the phone trying to figure something out for her. So I do appreciate you putting any effort. And I don't think I realized, and I probably should have, the magnitude of how bad even the housing shortage goes into that community as well. And so I do appreciate any work that you are trying to do. And if you ever need support for that work, you please let me know, reach out to me, and I'd be happy to lend a hand with that, because it's definitely something that I've figured out in this process, that you need more people that want to help those people. So,
You know, Stephanie, to that point, years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, I wanted to expand Temple Pines. 30 units were there, and I saw this, I had this vision that maybe we could take that empty space in the back and maybe put a walkway and build another 20 to 30 units. And we went forward with that. But what happens sometimes in government is people who live in the surrounding areas, they kind of voted against this, so we never really put it forward.
I understand.
So what we're trying to do now is Parkside. We put this bonding or this grant together, not a bonding package, and now we're trying to do the same thing to update Parkside.
yeah, I spoke with them because they did mention that they had some empty, but they're moving people around so that they could they can renovate the ones, and that's why they're currently not accepting even any applications.
Right.
And so yeah.
And to that point, I just want to let everyone know that the waiting lists are backed up. So we actually, in our housing authority, with let's say the 100 units or so, they were like 2 years, so they had to shut the waiting list down. And it's an unfortunate circumstance where the only time that the apartments open up is if the senior passes away, and so that kind of frees it up. That's kind of an odd paradox, right?
Right. I know it's difficult, and
right.
Yeah.
And then with we're Chaffa, Parkside and Temple Pines are Chaffa, so we work with Chaffa, but we have no control over HUD because that's strictly state, and that's where they hire outside contractors. So I'm sure if let's say you tried to call for your mother, Stephanie, Stevens Woods, it's probably
They
shut
don't.
down.
Nobody returns calls, and nobody returns emails.
Right.
Nobody.
Now-
No, it doesn't matter which. I've called the place on Clintonville. I've called all 4 places on Pool. Well, there's 2 that are
Right.
off of Pool down that
Yeah,
street.
yeah.
I've called those 2 places. I've called the 2 places on Pool. I've called places in Branford. I've called places in Hamden. I've called places in Northford. I mean, I've called everywhere, and I cannot. There's nothing available for her.
No,
So it's definitely.
Did you try Carmen Romano?
I've called everywhere.
Yeah. Did you try the Agency on Aging office?
I've called the state of Connecticut. I've called the HUD. I've called the department. I've called everything in the state of Connecticut. I've talked to 4 or 5 different people at the state capitol.
Sometimes better than making phone calls is going in person, and there's the Agency
Yeah,
on
unfortunately,
Aging, right?
I work 2 jobs, so
Okay.
driving up to Hartford or wherever the agency.
Well, no, I'm trying to tell you,
Yeah.
you keep interrupting me. There's an Agency on Aging right in the, on Washington Avenue in the shopping center.
Yeah, that person who I spoke with is the only person on the phone that spent and answered and actually was able to shed light on the differences between the places, as Mr. Frieda alluded to, that some are town, but then when you call the phone number for the town, it connects you to Wallingford because we're both using the same place. Wallingford's housing authority is our housing authority,
Right.
right? So I didn't know that. So when I called and left a message, it said Wallingford, so I was confused at first. But they never even called back. I actually had to press 0 to get somebody to pretend like I was putting in a ticket for to actually get somebody to answer the phone, just so I can just talk to them.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's unfortunate. I understand the applications are closed, but you should at least call somebody back and just tell them that, and just instead of that person doesn't exist, her mother doesn't need anything, they don't matter. It's very disappointing. So
Yeah, we combined with Wallingford about, 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah,
maybe?
but that's
Yeah.
that is the case. But,
We-
we're pretty much autonomous right now in
Yeah.
terms of maintenance, in terms of our own board. But there's one thing we can do to try to help you. It may not be the right answer in terms of getting the right answer, but we have the relationships we can call and find out how long this waiting list is. No, they won't even do it, Val?
There's been a lot of changeover in the staff. We used to have connections
Yeah.
when we would call ourselves Stevens Woods or Oakwood, and we would get people there who would respond to us, but we don't even get it.
It's very frustrating to, like she said, they don't.
The people that we had relationships with no longer work there.
One other thing I want to share with you, Stephanie, I think it's very important. A lot of people don't realize this, is that HUD's a good example. When you have a HUD facility, in this case in North Haven, and let's use Stevens Woods as an example, you're not just getting North Haven people. You're on a waiting list to
Yeah.
include other New
So when
Haven-
you sign up, you're signing up for
Yes.
the county, actually.
county, that's right.
Yeah, I know all this.
You know
I've definitely done my homework on all this, and when you go to HUD's website, when you sign up for updates of applications, you can sign up by county. So you can sign up by Fairfield, New Haven, So I signed up specifically for New Haven County and that surrounding area. So I've definitely spent my time researching a lot of this.
You've done a lot.
Yeah,
You've done a lot.
and it's really, like I said, I forget who, you gave me somebody's name, Tim. Yeah, she works in the rec center part-time? Senior center.
Judy.
She was fantastic. She spent like an hour on the phone with me. She gave me her phone number. She said I mean, obviously there's nothing she can do for me, but she was the only one that really, she like cleared up a lot of the how these things work for me. So, but I really appreciate anything you're trying to do for that, and you know, like I said, if you ever want support on that, I'm certainly available for that. I don't know what I can do, but yeah, thank you for your time in doing
You
that.
can help us be an advocate. That's
Yeah,
important.
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, oh yes, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to piggyback on that. Christia, 108 Grove Road. I put, my mom and I signed an application for housing predating the merger with Wallingford. No one could even tell us that there was a wait list back when this happened. So I think I had met with someone in your office, I think your assistant back then, and so again, this is years. So we don't even know where she is on the waiting list, but back then I couldn't even get anyone to acknowledge a wait list. And I think it was your assistant at the time that was kind enough to let me come in and make some calls for me to find out. So I don't even know how to go about that to see, or who to call to acknowledge any kind of an update.
So,
Was it the town, was it the
It was on
Parkside
Pool.
waiting list?
Well, we had to go to an office on Pool Road for the
Okay.
application way back, but then no one could even, find it, then get a wait list. I mean, it was this whole long, drawn-out thing, so
was it a woman by the name of Ann? Do you remember?
Yes, I
Ann.
believe
That's
so.
going way back then.
Yes, so,
way
I mean,
back.
at this point, we've still been trying to look other places and things, but wait to see, I mean, so it's been long enough that potentially, but I mean, we have no idea.
Right, well, we can call for you if you want to the,
Okay.
because Wallingford has the list.
Yeah.
The Wallingford Housing Authority, which is our housing authority, does have the wait list, so if she is in fact on that list, they can tell us.
Okay.
So if you want to call our office tomorrow.
Okay.
And we'll try to figure it out for you.
You want to call then, Christy? You want to call Valerie or Tammy
Yeah,
in my
that's
office?
fine. I
Okay.
can-
At least we'll
okay.
give you some clarity, okay?
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
wait-
just been a really long time, and same as Stephanie, you know, when she brought it up again, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start calling,
Right.
and I'm gonna, you know, because we had nearly
It's the
given
number
up
one
on that.
problem I think we have in our office. It's the call that I get, or we get most frequently, is
Yeah.
housing. It's a problem, and it's a problem all over, throughout
Yeah.
all of the communities. And I have family members that are basically homeless right now, and I can't help them.
Yeah.
So it's a big problem.
Yep. All right,
And
thanks.
it's
Thanks,
unfortunate.
Christy. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I see no other hands. So with no other hands, no other public comment, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.